make of the cybersecurity stocks here? Group's been on a real roller coaster, with many former market darlings getting totally obliterated, only to start bouncing back again. Take Palo Alto Networks, PANW, the fast-growing company that pioneered the next-generation firewall. Here's a stock that spent nearly 2 years getting hammered, peaking just above $200 in July of 2015, then sliding lower and lower as it struggled to keep up with market's expectations. It all came to a head at the end of February when Palo Alto told us that some changes in the sales organization had had a tough effect on its numbers, and the stock lost 25% of its value the next day. The darn thing kept sliding until it bottomed at 107 in early April. But since then, Palo Alto seems like it may have gotten its groove back. Stock's up nearly 30% in just 2 months, including a monster 17% gain last Thursday in the wake of a much better than expected quarter. Company delivered a robust 6-cent earnings beat off a 55-cent basis, much higher than expected revenue, excellent guidance for both the next quarter and the full year. So has Palo Alto finally gotten its house in order? Could this rebound still be in its early innings? Let's take a closer look with Mark McLaughlin. He is the chairman and CEO of Palo Alto Networks. To hear more about the quarter and the company's prospects, Mr. McLaughlin, welcome back to Mad Money.
Thanks, Jim. It's always good to be here. Thanks.
All right, so, Mark, you did lay it out. You told us in the previous quarter that, look, we're having some sales organization problems. We're going to fix them, and the numbers are going to come back. A lot of people were skeptical, but isn't that exactly what happened?
Well, we had a better quarter than we expected for sure. There's a number of factors that went into that. As we mentioned, we had a Salesforce reorg we're working through. We still think it's early innings on that. We got a long way to go, but we're very pleased to see the quarter came in better than we expected.
And it looks like from the conference call, you have taken some business away from some of the larger companies. Can you talk about some of those wins?
Yeah, sure. We've been acquiring customers at a very rapid rate and then growing them after we acquired them from the wallet share expansion in there. We had the second highest new customer acquisition quarter in our history in our Q3 with over 2,000 new customers. Most of them are coming from our competitors, whether it's Cisco, Checkpoint, Juniper, folks like that. We continue to take customers at a very high rate.
A lot of people feel you're a go alone, but that's not true. I mean, you're with Accenture, Amazon, Microsoft, and people feel like they have their own cybersecurity. But what the fact is that they, plus I was with Gary from Proofpoint yesterday, they were all talking about you as a good partner.
Well, you know, security is a very complicated space, and no one company can do everything. At least that's our philosophy on that. So what we've been trying to do is team up with folks who are doing an outstanding job in their portion of the ecosystem. We think we do a very good job in our portion, and we're teaming up with the leaders in the other portions of the ecosystem, because what customers ultimately want is for them to have to do less integration themselves and more integration from the beginning.
Mark, let me ask you how seriously we're taking this. Do you ever advise that internally at an organization that they ought to have, say, a red team and a blue team, where the red team is always trying to penetrate what you have and try to figure out what the bad guys are going to be up to, and the blue team tries to stop them?
Yeah, that's a familiar concept from the military, actually. But and companies of certain sizes can do that, where they can deploy red team, blue teams. A lot of companies just can't do that because they're too small and they don't have those kind of resources. But regardless of whether you can, red team your environment, what's really driving the need for security these days is increasing levels of automation and orchestration. So particularly for smaller companies, they just don't have the resources to keep up with all the complexities of cybersecurity. So what we're trying to do, and other folks trying to do, we think we're leaders here, is create real platforms that have a lot of automation, a lot of orchestration, and a lot of leverage that drives simplicity, because we're fighting a highly automated adversary, so we need more automation.
Well, I also have to imagine that you need to drive simplicity, in part because the directors on these companies were, for the most part, picked long before there was such a thing as a cybersecurity threat, and they must not understand any of this and think it's mumbo-jumbo.
Yeah, I talk to boards all the time. I had a couple boards in last week, and what I always tell the boards is, here's a simple way to think about things, which is go back to your CIO, your chief security officer, think about the level of automation that the adversary has, and ask how many people have to touch each attack that comes into your organization. Because if the answer is you're not driving down the number of people that manually have to touch these attacks, then you just don't understand the nature of the problem.
Okay, now, one of the things that I learned yesterday when Gary Steele was on a panel I ran from Proofpoint, there were some cybersecurity people who were saying, listen, in Europe, not as involved. I know you had a great international quarter, but some of the banks and some of the other people with ransomware accept the fact, and they pay in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is one of the reasons why Bitcoin's gone up so much. Are these institutions that want to hide from regulators and just pay off? Have you ever heard anything like that?
I hear it all the time, actually.
You do?
Yeah. So I think There's going to be these there's going to be these new currencies. They have a lot of anonymity associated with them, and I think that's just the reality for the future, right? So they can become convenient when they're used or misused in these directions with things like ransomware, which is how you pay for things. I think we just have to deal with the fact that new currencies are here with us to stay, and what you really have to work on is high degrees of prevention so that you don't fall subject to ransomware or other attacks like that.
How is our government focused on this? And is the Trump's executive order meaning a difference when you go in? Do people recognize, you know what, it's good, you know, that maybe you'll get in trouble with the government if you don't spend the money?
Well, we haven't taken that approach really yet from the U.S. government. There's approaches like that in Europe that came out recently, which is stick-carrot kind of approaches. But for the U.S. government, with the new executive order, what we're seeing is consistency, that security is a very big deal. The government recognizes that, and they really want to drive the industries to upgrade their capability sets and technology so that we can be as most advanced as possible. So it's a good thing.
Right. I just want to be sure again. I mean, you when you said at the beginning, when you talked about that reorganization, that you think you're the early innings of that, which it would impress upon me the idea that not only things back on track, but this quarter itself also, you're winning a lot of business.
Well, in the third quarter, we won a lot of business. Our expectations, we're going to win more business in the future. You can see from our guide, we expect 20 to 23% growth in our fourth quarter. So those are very high rates when we're operating at more than $2 billion run rate in billing. So these are big numbers we have to take down. We need to execute very well to do that.
All right, excellent. Mark McLaughlin, Chairman, CEO of Palo Alto Networks. Great to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.
Look, I think the guys are back. I think the stock is not expensive relative to where it was. And obviously, I think that cybersecurity is of the utmost, and we're still not spending enough on it. Mad Money's back here for free. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.